Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have the pleasure of hosting Steff Noble, an incredible WNBF Fit Body Pro, a coach and president of the WNBF UK. Fresh off her experience at Worlds, Steff is here to share insights from the competition, her role as a judge, and valuable advice for any competitors out there. She's got a wealth of experience to share. Whether you're an athlete, coach, or fan of natural bodybuilding, this episode is packed with inspiration and practical takeaways. But guys, before we jump into it, please do, if you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe, give us a nice review, comment over on YouTube, and share it with anyone you think might enjoy it, even if that's just tagging it on your stories over on Instagram. I say tagging me and Steff would be fantastic. I'm always responding to everyone who ever tags, and I appreciate all of you, especially leading into 2025. We want the podcast to be growing as well as ever, so we reach as wide an audience as ever we can. So guys, I appreciate you. Let's dive into the chat. So Steff, I thought the best place to start would be talking about your highlights from WNBF Worlds 2024 in Boston.
Okay. I mean, there were so many, Steve, and I love having these conversations after Worlds when it's fresh in your mind as well. Every year, just the standard raises, and I think anyone who was there in person, but anyone who's actually seen it online as well, will have seen a couple of golden moments where, the top of the tree natural bodybuilders going head to head on stage, in the amateurs and in the pro ranks as well. I think for me, one of those standout moments was, of course, in the pro middleweights with Babacar and Oscar. That was pretty special, I think, for anyone who's a bodybuilding enthusiast or just inspired by what can be achieved naturally. That was a real standout moment. I think everyone was really excited about seeing Babacar come back this year to WNBF. But then to be pushed at the level he was pushed by Oscar as well, it was quite something to see. So that was definitely a highlight for me. Another highlight probably would have been just, I'm super proud of the UK and the talent that's coming out of the UK. And we had in the WNBF UK team alone, we had three new pros take pro cards at the Worlds, which is always an incredible achievement. We had a chap called Innocent in the Masters Bodybuilding who came out of nowhere at the Supernaturals in the UK this year and made a real statement. And I think we're seeing a lot more of the Masters come through. Incredible depth of tissue and real standard to be pushing for pro level athletes. And he took that. That was a real special moment as well. He's a real character, and I don't think he even expected it. So, the reactions you see in live time are pretty cool. What else? I mean, the female bodybuilder, I want to say Fuentes is her last name. I will have to look that up, but she's a Spanish competitor. She had taken a pro fit body card, but she wanted to test herself in women's bodybuilding, which I think was a really good idea. So she put the Fit Body Pro card aside, went into the amateur ranks on the Saturday, and tested herself in the amateur women's bodybuilding division. I mean, if anyone has seen this woman, she is unbelievable. The muscle on her is quite outstanding, and she took that win at the amateur. She took her pro card in women's bodybuilding, and she went on to compete in the women's bodybuilding the next day in the pro class. And she took that win. I mean, she was phenomenal. And it's incredible because in that lineup, we had Natalie Hayes as well, who took the world championship from the year before. And we had Zoe Leeming, one of the UK pros in women's bodybuilding, take it the year before that. So the three world champions standing on that stage, and it just shows the level that's increasing every year. That even these two world champions were standing in that lineup and took second and third there. And I mean, phenomenal to watch. And she was quite outstanding as well. So that was a major highlight too. So there's so many, I could keep going on, but those were three that kind of stood out for me.
Yeah, just to touch on the female bodybuilders, I think for listeners, you need to go check out like Natty News Daily or the WNBF official page, because I was looking, I didn't catch it, because as a competitor on the day, as you know what it's like
Yeah.
you're prioritizing you, so you don't always catch these divisions. And I think they were on a little bit ahead of us. And I looked at some of those and I was just like, again, Zoe, I know how shredded she comes in, Natalie as well. And the condition and muscularity on these women, like, unbelievable. I think like a lot of the guys looking on at them would be like, I would really want to be able to get that amount of muscle mass in my lifetime, let alone the women looking up to them, because it's incredible what they are able to kind of bring to stage. So yeah, I know the levels of Zoe and Natalie. So for her to have come in and taken it is like, it kind of makes it a bit fun and interesting at the same time.
Well, it was amazing because I've just looked it up. It's Amor Fernandez. Sorry, I got her name wrong. Amor Fernandez. Go check her out on the WNBF Spain page. But you know, I was joking on the panel saying that if you just put your hand over her upper body for a second and you look at her lower structure, she could have been, you know, like a pro lightweight male, you know, lower half. Her density in her legs, her hamstring development, the quad sweep from the rear, unreal, really. And just right down to the lower half of the leg, she had a wonderful split through her calves. She had wonderful, you know, conditioning, like feathering even on the top of her calves. It was insane to see someone, you know, a female with that depth of muscularity, conditioning, and this feminine poise and flow that she had on stage as well. It was really cool to see. And I think, you know, for a lot of women who are, you know, not sure if they want to kind of go down the more muscular route, I think she was a really perfect example of, and I think it was her cousin or her sister was doing the Pro Fit Body as well. They looked very similar, but for anyone looking at that, you know, as a woman who's thinking, oh, I really want to kind of push into those more muscular ranks, but stay feminine and stay really, you know, kind of powerful on stage, they were really great inspirations to be looking at. And I mean, that's genetic potential there is crazy. Let's be honest as well, you know.
Runs in the family.
It runs in the family, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, they were pretty amazing to watch, and just their presentation was flawless as well. So they had the whole package. Yeah.
And I remember you mentioned Innocent. I remember him from the Supernaturals, and how just I as soon as he came on stage, I was like, this guy is going to be hard to beat, because just the amount of muscle mass on his frame, and also just like skinless type of look, the condition that he brought. And I remember thinking at the Supernaturals, this guy has heaps of potential if he can just get his posing right.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see him on stage. I've seen a few shots of him kind of hitting some shots, but it looked like he improved that quite a bit. But it sounds like, at least from what I've seen, he could, even on that level, he could do even better with even more refined posing. So it's bags of potential on that man.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he's got that real kind of bubbly muscle, and he has a real stage charisma as well. You know, if he can't, I completely agree with you. You know, we had the WNBF UK posing session the day previous, where we always like to do that with the team, you know, just to kind of touch on key things that the worlds are looking for. And I'm so glad he came to that, because I pretty much think we tried to hone in his posing in about, you know, the 12 hours before his showing. But he was listening, and it, you know, even in that short period of time, he improved. But I think now, because he's in the pro ranks, and he obviously, you know, has had this crazy journey very quickly, in order to hang in those pro level lineups. Yeah, that's where that next element, the posing, the presentation, the just how you present yourself on stage, has to go up a notch. So if he's listening and is saying, do your homework on the posing.
Absolutely. I think that's something I guess I would say Innocent and I've forgotten her name already, the woman before, obviously these individuals with amazing genetics, sometimes they can kind of hang their hat on the amazing muscularity and condition they can bring that's levels above people with lesser. But when you get into the pro ranks, now everyone's kind of on that. They're working and living as a pro, so just everything is polished. So to be competitive there, even if you've always been very, very good as an amateur, now you have to just, every little detail counts. Like every weakness, the judges just can see it abundantly clear. Whereas as an amateur, you know, I mean, the people that know how to pose, they highlight it immediately, but there's only so many that do, and it's a bit more mixed. And when you're even novices now, there's novices with amazing posing and that sort of thing, which is incredible to see. So I think everyone's leveling up. So it's, you have to cross every T and dot every I.
100%. I think like across the whole of the international circuit, I've had a real privilege of doing a lot of travel, judging a lot of the different WNBF shows. And I'm seeing that more and more now with the amateur ranks, the athletes that are really doing their due diligence to almost looking like a pro before they're a pro is really, they're really standing out. And the at worlds level, I think I might have said this on a podcast with you before, but they're looking right down to the levels of grooming, how your suit fits, how you walk from the second on stage to the last round. You were on the stage, obviously, Steve, so you know how long worlds hold you there. 45 minutes up to 50 minutes at some points, especially in the pro men's. Your lightweight class was heavy, really heavy. And I think, you're going around and around and around and around, and that posing fitness as you climb up the ranks shouldn't be overlooked. And if you're an amateur, my absolute advice would be like over time yourself with posing, because the longer you can hold them, the more you are statuesque. And a prime example of that, of course, somebody else who's incredible is Dirk. If you ever look at Dirk Emrick's posing, he is like unbelievably still and poised in every single pose. He doesn't flicker, he doesn't move, he gets there very quick, he hits the pose, and he is statuesque. And it's quite something to watch when someone's got that, it's almost like ballerina-esque in the posing. It's like you have this rod through the center line of the body, and every time you move, it is so clean and crisp and upright. And it's quite amazing when you watch it, posing done very, very crisp and well. It's an art.
I completely agree. Like you said, when you're a judge, you see it immediately and abundantly, or if you're in the crowd. And I don't know, when I'd been doing it maybe a couple of months out, I was already on timing myself for 30 seconds to hold every single pose. And it's not fun as a competitor, that's the thing. But there's a lot of things that the training's kind of, towards the end it's not fun, but it's fun. Like a lot of elements we do are fun. The posing, unless you love it, but holding poses for that long is not particularly fun. But as you said, so important, especially at that level. And when you see people fatigue and they break down and I don't know, they start sweating a bunch. And I think for me to be on like Dirk's level, I think experience will also help a ton, because I know I get nervous. I think you always do, but you kind of maintain a bit more of a poised look the more experience you get and exposure you get to the stage. And I just need to accumulate a little bit more of that, I think, and that will go a long way.
Yeah, and you kind of see like two things happen when they're going through the rounds. If you've got the posing fitness, like some people will start to fade, and they just don't get as crisp, and then some people start to really pop because you can almost see the water just dropping off them, or any inflammation through the tissue just dropping off them. So it can kind of go both ways. And of course, the sweating, tan moving is always quite challenging, and some of that you can pose all you want, but you might just be a sweater, you know what I mean? And some of it is posing fitness, and you can control that a little bit more. I often think as well it depends on the kind of tan that you're using, and something I did see at Worlds, and actually I've seen it across quite a lot of the shows this year, is over glazing, or potentially it could be the glaze that people are using, I'm not sure, but sometimes you see an overglaze which has like the opposite effect, where the light's just bouncing off and it's quite hard to see past it. So it's getting the fine tuning with how much glaze and where to put the glaze as well. And it is hard as a competitor, because you don't have foresight on how the lighting is, what the stage is like, but if you can be, I always think sort of don't overshoot the runway with glaze, because it can have the negative effect. So it's sort of just getting the balance right, and that takes a few practice runs for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know when I was at the Netherlands, there was a competitor. He used a different tan to the rest of us, and I remember Mike Chalice was saying like he just stood out. It was just something different about him. But in the same, like you said, you can sometimes stand out for the wrong reasons, being too dark. And yeah, at this stage, I know Cliff Wilson was coaching me, and he was like, with this lighting, make sure to get plenty of glaze on. So I'll be interested to see a bit more footage when that comes out, to be like, how did that pan out on that stage, and have a look at what I was looking like. And so
Really
yeah,
cool.
these fine details.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool though that your coach is highlighting that, because I think that's something that until you go to these shows and you see the different lights, you see the different setups, you don't maybe consider that, like what, and it's the same with the depth of color of tan. Somebody, who was it? I think it could have been James Melville. James Melville's
Very
tan,
dark.
very, very dark. So he goes really dark. And actually, I judged him at the not Swiss show, sorry, the Germany show. And the lighting there and his tan, the depth, wonderful. Absolutely amazing. You could see every detail. The lighting at the Worlds with that darkness had a little bit of a matting effect. Like it just looked almost too dark a little bit. So I feel that would have been something that exactly that, where you're analyzing before, or even it might be that you can kind of, unless you're the first class on, get into the venue and see your lighting before you apply tan. I know that's hard, but when you're at those levels as well, that's something definitely worth considering. Because if it is a darker or a yellow toned light, so on stage, you should always have a white wash, right? It should be very light, stark white. So if you look up at the lights, you want to be seeing white light. You don't want to really be seeing any gels like reds or yellows, because if you do have that, which a lot of shows do, you do want to have a slightly lighter color, not as dark, because it doesn't reflect as well if you're too dark, the yellows and the reds almost like mix with it, if that's that's kind of terminology I would use. So, I mean, this is stuff I always look at. Obviously, from a promoter head, is, how are the lights going to make sure that the judging, or that we can have a look at sort of the depth of the color on stage, because everyone's going to bring a different depth of color. But white will almost give you a translucent effect. So everything kind of mixes, it doesn't matter what color it is, kind of works quite well. But if there's a tone in the lights, that can definitely have a different effect to a deeper or darker color, I would say.
On that note, Steff, do you have a preference or any advice to competitors on doing their own tan versus getting the professional tanners? Because I've always just sided with, after I tried my own tan a few times at some shows, it's kind of all that I had access to, and I've always just thought, if I can do the professional tanner, they've got it available, do it, because then at least I'm kind of on a level playing field to everyone else, and hopefully the professionals know what they're doing and they can get it right for you there and then. But I don't know if you found kind of doing an individual tan can sometimes even provide a better result. I guess it can, but on average, where would you kind of advise people?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak sort of from my experience of having resident tanners at my events. Like, I've had long in-depth discussions with them. They know the lighting setup. We know what we're doing, so that I know that the depth of color they provide hits our lights. Like, it works very well with our setup. So in that response, I'd say 100%, if a show has a resident tanner that they have, vetted, done the due diligence of, and are part of the backstage services, definitely get the tan, because more often than not, it's been set up with the production element of the event. If, however, like, it's another show and maybe they do have that's just obviously our event. But if it's another show and they do have resident tanners, I don't know whether they've done the same process that I have, so I can't be completely 100% on that. But what I would say is it takes out so much stress for you. And unless you've got someone there who can kind of be very diligent with the tan, or you're quite good at it yourself, it's difficult to get it really even and really kind of that airbrushed look, which is what the tanners and the spray booths are kind of designed for. It's like that more even spray, which is that more airbrushed kind of look. So yeah, I mean, that would be what I'd say. On the flip side, I had a couple of my own athletes there. Well, I had a few different hats, but switching to my coaching hat, I had Chelsea, Christian, Lauren, a few of my guys at the World Championships this time round. And Chelsea, Christian had bought their own tan and had done each other's, and they both came out with a really nice depth of color. But they both know what they're both doing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're very experienced athletes. So yeah, they were able to do that themselves, and bring a nice depth there. So it isn't a one size fits all, but certainly if the show has a tanner, I would say use them, and you can always be a bit more guiding to the tanner. Like if you come away from the first coat and think, oh, it's not dark enough, it needs a bit more depth. The next day you pop in, because it's always a two-prong attack. The next day you pop in, you can always say, can I have, a little bit more depth? So you can be a bit more guiding on that too, once you get to know kind of your own skin and how much you need.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I was going to say the Netherlands and the Swiss show, I think I got 3 coats, which normally for listeners, if they don't know, you get 2. But I was just like, at both occasions, I was like, I think another coat is going to do me. I couldn't actually do it at Worlds because I don't know what happened. I don't know if you know about the tanning situation, but it seemed like, at least when I was going and getting it, it wasn't the most organized tanning, or what I was saying. They seemed to think I was going to be on very shortly, and it wasn't the case. But hey, this happens. It shows you never, even as competitors, it's very rare that you go to a show and like everything's by the minute, and a lot of shows don't even give you that level of detail of it's going to be at this time because they know it can't be.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard, and I had that issue this year, and as a show promoter, like, you go in with the premise of having 99% organized, but there'll always be the 1% that will come out of nowhere, or something will happen, and you have to adapt, and you have to learn and grow and change the the organization of things. In my case with supernaturals, we need to look at kind of strategy with the structure of the categories and the timing, so that we can manage a larger volume of people. Great problem to have, but as a first year with having a larger volume of people, we had to learn that. We had to learn, I will never sacrifice stage time for athletes, but there are ways in which we can manage around routines and walks and lots of little things that people don't realize. The setting out of prizes, the on and off of staff, like all of these little micro moments, they take time, which becomes minutes, which becomes hours sometimes within events. So people are very easy to jump to kind of like the issue, and that's fair enough because everyone wants a great experience. But there will be reasons potentially why certain things are running late. Sometimes it's just pure laziness, in which case we need to work on that as well. But I think, I can't speak for the tanners. Didn't really hear anything about that actually at the Worlds, but that's certainly good feedback. And for any organization, that's things that we should be if we're diligent to wanting the athlete experience to be as good as it possibly can be in every area, taking away for the feedback session at the end of the year, which I do with my backstage team and everything else, and going, right, what can we improve on for 25? How can we make sure that the athlete experience is better? And these things are, they're very important. So you're right. It's, stuff that needs to be done.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can't think of a good analogy for it, but just lots of things in life where you look outside in and you think it's a simple thing, and it's just like, hey, why isn't that being? And it's like, actually, there's this, and you don't really realize until you're in the thick of it, doing it yourself. You're like, oh, okay, right. I think even as a non-competitor, looking at competitors getting to stage, it's just like, oh, it's just fat loss. And it's like, no. There's posing, grooming, like exfoliating, moisturizing. Like there's so many elements, travel, then food, peak week. It's a big handful of stuff. So yeah, I completely respect that. And I think a lot of, especially experienced competitors kind of get it, and they have those expectations in mind too. But it's obviously, like you said, as a good show promoter, you should be learning and getting better and growing, which, I mean, I see that with the WNBF UK every year. So that's always good. With, obviously you judged, I don't know how many shows you judged this year, but a lot. And I saw you traveling a lot, which is so cool. I can't explain how much I've gained experience-wise from judging just the WNBF UK, the first timers as well. So you must have gained just so many insights and lessons, I expect, from judging all over the place. So for the listeners, where did you judge this year, and what maybe were some of your main takeaways?
Yeah, okay. So with the WNBF this year, I have judged Malaysia, Singapore, Dubai, Switzerland, France, Germany, my own show. Although I wasn't judging at that, I never judged the supernaturals. I'm always, making sure you guys are all good. It's been an incredible year. I think for me, I am part of this incredible network, and the relationships are growing exceedingly tighter and stronger within the WNBF UK, the WNBF official. And for me to be able to go over and support my fellow affiliates on other sides of the globe and get an insight into the depth of the competitors coming through worldwide, but the cultures are different. And I think what's amazing is, we can come to the UK, or we can go to Australia, or we can go to the German show, and the level of the female muscular bodybuilders, or the classes, fit body, bikini, or fit body, figure, and women's bodybuilding are growing. But what's amazing is then you transfer over to Asia and maybe the UAE or the Malaysian or Singapore shows, and they're still quite I'd say young on the ground. It's because of, like, culturally, it's not as popular, obviously, in those areas, but it's incredible because women are starting to see, oh, that's something I can do. What have I learned? I mean, my goodness. I feel really privileged to be very experienced in my judging role. So being able to have or help the other affiliates as well with a diverse judging panel that's truly international, so that we're remaining, very unbiased. Our panels are full of promoters or judges from all over the world, and then being able to offer insight into making sure the criteria are stuck to, and obviously then being able to have the opportunity to head judge as well. So ensuring that the way in which athletes are structured on stage, the call outs, how everything is done is amazing. It's fantastic. And I've really loved being a part of the different panels across the world. The different sort of levels of diligence and production, and it's crazy. You go over to the Singapore Malaysian show and UAE as well, and they have so much scope for production. They have a lot more, some of the sponsors and more money coming into those organizations give them ability to build out their production, which is crazy to see, and it's amazing to see as well. So it gives you lots of ideas going all over the place, because I come back to my community and over here and think, well, what can I take away from those events, and what could I level up next year? I've already got a ton of ideas that are coming for 25. But then equally, they're getting that from my side as well. And we've all got skill sets and strengths that are feeding into each other, and we're sharing how we do things so that all of us level up. And so that's been really exciting for me to be a part of. I'm building great relationships, like the guys, my fellow promoters, and the judges that are all sharing these panels. They're so, what would I say? Like, we're all very attached to the vision and the cause, like doing things right, making sure the drug testing is on point, making sure the criteria is stuck to, that we don't deviate away too much from anything, because we need to be coherent across the board. And then all feeding that up, of course, into Worlds and to our leaders at the top with WNBF Official. Yeah.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. Additionally, you get access to our exclusive Revive Stronger member site, where you'll be able to watch over hundreds of hours worth of educational content. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
That's super cool. Just to touch on drug testing, actually, initially, I just for the listeners, like, I was polygraphed twice this season, and I also had 2 urine tests as well. So like I only did 3 shows. It's like I had four like rounds of testing. So it's definitely happening. And I got the urine test results. I don't think I've had the Swiss ones yet. But I had the ones back from the Netherlands, just because I know I saw some posts on social media. It was like, if you don't receive your results, the test isn't happening type of thing. So like I definitely got those results. And yeah, it's great as a competitor to be tested, and because that's what makes natural bodybuilding natural, right? So I think it's so cool that the WNBF, as far as I'm concerned, when I look across federations and the testing that's going on, they're right up there. Like they're doing everything they kind of can be in that regard. I know Babacar was like comprehensively tested at the Swiss show. I think he may even got some blood work done at that point too, which we didn't touch on Babacar, by the way, where you said he was a highlight. People listening might recognize that name because I competed against him at the Swiss show. And so it was actually really cool. It was quite nice for me because the Swiss show, I think everyone there, apart from Nicolo from Italy, but everyone else on stage, apart from one other competitor who came third at that show, I think he might be German. He didn't compete at Worlds, but everyone else placed in the top 5 at Worlds. So it was kind of like, that Swiss show was high caliber. So yeah, it was kind of cool to see that, and great to see those guys like being mega competitive up at Worlds, and Babacar again. I'm going to jump to a question about Babacar here, actually. Do you think anyone at this do you think he's the best? Obviously, he's just one, but you have other people in mind in terms of like who won previous years. Do you think he's the best of the best? Like, if do you see anyone taking it from him when he's at his best?
I mean, I can think of Brian DaCosta last year, world champion. You've seen Bada, who did the heavyweights this year as a world champion, but you know, you can see the standard is growing because Bada, I think, was he 4th or 5th? I can't remember this year.
I'm not sure if he placed.
Or
forgive me if I'm wrong, Bada, but I'm not sure.
Possibly, I'm not sure. Yeah, we'd have to double check back on that.
Yeah.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is the level is rising, and when you know you have somebody like Babacar, I mean, he is symmetrically. He's like the Vitruvian Man, isn't he? I mean, he is. His ratios from his lats to his midsection, his quads sitting underneath his hips, where his joint insertions are, he's so petite in certain areas, and then it just bubbles off him. Turn to the side, and the thickness in his hamstrings, his legs, his lats, across his chest like up to here. You know, it's like absolutely mind-boggling when you look at him from all 3 rounds perspective. Symmetry, muscularity, his conditioning, you know, arguably he could have been a bit tighter if you wanted to kind of push it that way to be his ultimate. But I think because his symmetry is so good, I think it would be very hard to overlook that, even with some of the mass monsters like Brian DaCosta, for example. I would also argue that from a presentation point of view and posing, he's very good. He knows how to hit his best shots, and when he hits them, it's like, whoa, you can't take your eyes off him. It would be super cool to see him in a lineup with some of the world's greatest, you know? And there's other athletes, other pro athletes that I've always admired, like David Kay being one of them. David Kay, I love David Kay's shape. His again, clavicle structure to narrow waist, volume of tissue. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. I would love to see him on a WNBF stage, you know, in the pro level. That would be something quite exciting. But certainly Baba at the moment, I think he's top of the tree. Yeah.
And there's, I think Mishak, you're aware of Mishak? He's from the US. I don't think he's done WNBF either. I think he might be OCB or...
Yeah, yeah.
But a wild, like, he's like Babacar, but like a bit shorter. Like, it's just such huge muscle bellies and muscle, and yeah, he's just. I think I thought I saw a teaser from him being like, oh, there's some good compares. Maybe I'll come out of retirement.
Yeah, and what I would say as well is that, you know, going back to the travels that I've done this year, you know, I went over to judge the UAE show, and there's some incredible athletes at that event who can't get the visas to come to the US. So you've got people like, if you can go check these guys out, Nana, Rod, some of these like Nana, you can pull him up. Is another guy who's I think maybe just about the same height as Baba. Again, though, insertions, his structure, his symmetry, incredible. But we can't see him over at the Worlds at the moment because of visa stuff, which is unfortunate. Because some of these guys, if they were on that stage, would also be, like, whoa, where's this guy come from, And so that was actually pretty cool to see as well, is a lot of athletes we maybe won't see in the States, but they are there high level in deep lineups, big lineups as well. And that's something you have to become experienced at as well, is being able to manage, a 20 deep stage or a 15 deep stage or whatever. Really, really cool to see. So definitely go and check them out if you haven't as well, the UAE guys, because they're monsters too.
And you bring up a good point. And I think it's something hopefully a lot of the listeners are aware of. Like, it depends who turns up on the day, like at these events. Yeah. Like, you might be best in the world this year, but that's maybe because XYZ didn't turn up or they couldn't get there. And so I think that also keeps the sport a little bit interesting in that regard as well. So yeah, it's great to see. And again, David K, if he could come out, like, he is a very contrasting physique almost to Bada, not Bada. Yeah, Bada. So it'd be Babacar, sorry. So it'd be really interesting to like see how, like, that'd be a tough job to judge, to be honest. I wouldn't want to be on that judging panel.
Yeah, really doesn't like this is why it's quite exciting though, because then you have these contrasting physiques, but they're pushing each other in different ways. And like a David K physique's quite like he'd be like quite a lot taller than a Babacar, for example. But the way he can almost externally rotate and open up his hips, and I always think of David K's back shot where he's able to extend his leg to the side and almost again, I go back to the sort of the ballerina, we call it that, like, extend that hip extension where you pull your hips out and rotate back. He's like an X like this perfectly, right from the shoulder to the toe at the bottom, and it's amazing to look at. And I think something like watching him next to a Baba, he might not have the same density as like a Baba, potentially. You'd have to look at them both, but I think it'd be really cool to see them both dance, so to speak, next to each other. Pretty cool. Yeah.
And you'd also, it would force one another to level up as well. If there is any inches they can gain, it's like, oh my God, I'm going against literally the best of the best. So yeah, maybe something like that. I'd love to see something like that happen. In terms of obviously your lessons, is there any practical advice? Because obviously you've seen tons of competitors on stage. Any practical advice that comes to mind for competitors? Obviously we've talked about posing. Is there anything else you're seeing maybe quite consistently where people are kind of leaving ground that they could be being more competitive on?
I think like the first thing that comes to mind is sportsmanship for me. And I know this isn't necessarily an on-stage, well, it is an on-stage thing as well as off-stage, but I think this year I've interacted with so many different competitors across the globe, like from, complete novices right the way through to advanced, experienced athletes. And you can really get the sense of a full, well-rounded athlete when they have a humble confidence in what they're doing. And they're speaking about the sport from a place of like consistent passion. It's not just about them. It's about what they're doing. It's about the bigger picture. It's about sharing their journey to the stage. Like, you're very good at this as well, is sharing the journey to the stage and it not just being about that one moment. And almost once you've done that moment, nothing else matters and my journey's mine and I don't care where I kind of compete. It's sort of, I think, now more than ever, particularly in natural bodybuilding, like, we're growing and the community is growing. And David Langsdale made a point to me when we were chatting after the show itself, and we went and did a WNBF UK training session up at the gym in Boston. And he was saying, like, sometimes I'm not going to win, or sometimes I've had a lot of placings which maybe haven't been what he wanted them to be this year, but he didn't want to give up because he just wanted to show that regardless, you can inspire and continue and keep pushing the journey. And I think it takes a lot for someone to sort of step back if they've maybe not had all of the, the wins and he's had a lot of successes, but he's had a different kind of year as well this year, which has been full of ups and downs, I would say. But he has like a good mindset, and he's sharing that mindset with his peers, with the federation, with the people he interacts with. And I saw that from Ramon Lineker as well, who was like, he came straight off stage and he jumped on a little interview and he was just talking about his journey and how grateful he is to have had the opportunities. And I think that speaks volumes, that sportsmanship narrative, and speaking about it from all different angles. And people really buy into that. You know, nobody just wants to see the person who wins and then he comes off stage and he's like, right, I've won. I'm amazing. Off I go. Like, I mean, I say nobody wants to see that. It's cool to a point, and then it's like, well, what are you kind of giving back as well? And I suppose I'm maybe a wee bit more passionate about this because it's what I do, and it's providing these opportunities. But then I think about, regardless of being a promoter or regardless of, you know, having an interest in this, as an athlete myself, or, you know, especially when I was actively competing, I really felt like I wanted to thank the organizations, be part of it, learn who people are, but also be just be kind of a role model that would help other people feel like it's not, you know, winning a pro card or winning a show is not all it's about. And I always felt like that was something I wanted to emulate in my personality. But I guess it's just something I'm like. But that's something I would say is a practical advice. Is like, think about, yes, you're competing, yes, you're doing this thing, but like, who are you in the community? Like, who are you in the sport? Like, what do you want your message and your sort of, dare I say it, legacy to be? You know, like, what do you want to be in this game, as well as just winning a trophy? And I've seen that from so many different athletes this year, talking about it, hearing their stories, hearing their narratives, and them sharing it with people. It's really cool. So I hope that gives a bit of insight into maybe some of the other things that I think about when I'm speaking and interacting with people.
I really resonate with that and completely agree. I do not think, I know I wouldn't have had the longevity I have in the sport bodybuilding if I didn't take that kind of process oriented perspective and just looking at it as like, hey, yeah, I compete now and then, but it's like I live the lifestyle and I'll get what I get, and not focusing so much on the outcome and just the process of enjoying that. And again, seeing what I can bring to the area as a whole and kind of level everyone up in that sense. And I really see that. And it really resonated with me when I did the Swiss show, which is my pro debut, of course. And speaking with those guys backstage, everyone was just so humble and really cool and giving each other props. And like, I didn't quite have that in the amateur ranks. It wasn't that friendly and that kind of interactive. Whereas everyone was just like, oh, cool, you placed last, whatever. I'm no better than you. I placed first. Oh, awesome, you placed first. I'm last. It doesn't matter. We're all just bodybuilders at the end of the day. And I think that's not because they're pros or what have you. It's the maturity to get a pro card. Generally, you have to have been doing it for quite a while. And so you understand the process of also getting there. So you just have in that like renowned respect for everyone who steps on stage. Whereas I think as an amateur, you haven't necessarily had the time to appreciate that. So I think that's really good advice for any newer competitors. Like, try and embrace everything you've just said, Steff. I think is perfect. And David is a great example of that. And props to him for kind of leading the way and sharing that, because it's not always easy. I certainly know sometimes you don't want to share.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a judgmental sport, right? And it's brutal at times. It's brutal at and we've probably all experienced that in some way or another. But, you know, it's having that kind of open attitude and sharing in all of it, the ups and downs and all the rest of it. Authenticity wins every time, I think, you know, in that sense and people want to see more real stories, real people doing this thing. You know, it's like it's not all highlight reel, a bit like kind of Instagram. You know, it's real people with real lives. Most of the time, this is a hobby for most of us, unless you're like very lucky to have a full-time job in all of the fitness sort of side of it. But yeah, it's like celebrating the whole of it, the journey really. And yeah, that's definitely some advice I'd say is be more if this is something you love, and just be more vocal about it. And other sort of practical things would be just do the work as well. Is like, you know, bring your best and try and look at every area of it and work with good people. Make sure you've got great people in your corner. That's a massive one. Massive one is having the right role models, people in your corner. You know, I'm not talking about the kinds of people that are just telling you you're great. In fact, the opposite.
Yes.
If you've got people in your corner who can actually level you up a little bit, make you think a little bit about how you can be better, in all senses of the word. I think it's great having those types of people in your corner that you can trust, rely on, who will balance you out a little bit. That's definitely something I would give as advice as well.
Great advice. And so you mentioned, actually, obviously you've got lots of experiences from judging at various shows, different productions. I think we were even talking at the Swiss show, the difference between the Swiss show, which is very like classic kind of old school vibes, but very kind of quaint, versus something a bit more kind of the shows over in Singapore and such, which are a bit more kind of extravagant in that sense. What are you looking to change or introduce to the WNBF UK? What can people look forward to? Because I know this past one, the DJ was really exciting, and the music and the vibe's always great. The energy's always really good. But is there any other kind of things people can look forward to that you can talk about?
Yeah, I have got a few. I'm not going to talk about them yet, though, because I like to have a little bit of a surprise up my sleeve every year. I like to show the levels, and I like people to look forward to something. So, this year was all about how do we create that energy, and having Gilbert, I love having him at the events. I want to have him more at our events this coming year. Music, energy, the vibrant sort of flow, in not just for the competitors, but for the audience as well, for everybody involved. That was like something I really wanted to bring into this year. And so having Gilbert was epic. And I think I had so many people comment and, message me about him. He was just like a showman on himself, in the venue, and it was great. And to be honest, for that one, which was a big show, it was a very, very good piece of the puzzle. Like anything, I think with every year, certainly feedback is so important. Like, I came straight off the stage from Supers. I had a call with all who were involved in backstage. I listened to everybody, because everyone's got great ideas. Everyone has good, critique. We talk about the positives, we talk about things we should be doing better, we talk about failure points. There's lots of little things that we're going to be doing to make sure that the feedback has been listened to for next year. That includes better structure for the timing of the show. It also means that I'll probably be capping numbers, although we will be in a slightly bigger venue now, which people are like, oh, well, it's just a bigger venue, it's not going to help. It does, because the flow of people and the way things interact in a space cuts time quite considerably. So that's definitely something. And then the actual, what I will say is, obviously the visual of the show is something I'll be working pretty hard on. So there's like a lot of nice little things that will be slightly different next year. Yeah.
I can definitely speak to the size of venue making a difference, because even comparing this Boston venue to Worlds in 2021 at the casino is huge. Yeah. And so it almost felt like there's just so much space, and it just made it so much easier to like get around, whereas the Boston one's a little bit more small, and like you have to creep past people and stuff. So it definitely makes a big difference. So I think people will feel that immediately, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the perfect example is we had 200 athletes at the first timers novice in an 800-seater venue. And we had 250, or it was just shy of that once registrations came in at the Supernaturals, and we were in a 380-seated venue. So we managed to keep pretty much on time, bar a little bit of lost time in a new venue for setup technical stuff at the first timers. We lost a wee bit at the beginning, but we made up for it, and we kind of just, finished thereabouts. And that was almost the same numbers, but in a over double the size venue. So it gives you an insight into kind of the planning, the strategy for different things. We always want to try and be on time. There's always little things that like you can do better, but certainly you're right. If you've got a larger space, the volume of traffic moving from A to B in one side of the venue to the other, even just the flow of the audience in and out of a space, it's important to manage that. And of course, I'm very lucky to be able to say, we've now got an audience number and an athlete number that we need that bigger space, which is wonderful to be able to say, and now try and strive to have better places to hold the shows. and continue to level up. Yeah, so there will be lots of little changes, and there will be some really cool, visual upgrades, including, of course, post show is going to go ahead again, and we are pushing for pro bodybuilding as well as the men's physique, and we are hoping to still have one of our female classes of Fit Body. Yeah.
That's very exciting. I was going to ask if there was going to be more pro classes introduced. And so, yeah, that'll give, I know, having spoken to so many people online who are very excited about coming to the UK and competing. In fact, I spoke to some people that thought the Supernaturals was a pro bodybuilding open, like I
had so many questions about it last year.
So I know there's a lot of people that want to come over here and compete. So I'm expecting big things. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go compete, because I would love to, but it just, unless I somehow stay incredibly lean, I'm just like, I'll just mini cut into it. But I can't see that happening. I need to take all the judges' feedback on board from this season and climb that the new ladder, as it were.
Pro ladder, yeah.
Yes. And actually, I don't know if you saw any sport. You've obviously seen sport in the US before, right? I guess. Yeah, so I went to a basketball game, and it was just like every little hole of time was filled with some sort of a exciting thing as an onlooker. And when you were speaking about the Supernaturals, it made me think of that, where it's like the crowd never feel like they're just wasting time sitting there waiting for the next class to come on. There's always something going on that they can interact with and enjoy, even if that's just the presenter talking about, I don't know, some of the sponsors or things that are going on. It keeps you very engaged and wanting to be there as someone watching, and maybe you only have one person on stage, but you can watch the whole event and be entertained by it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, because, bodybuilding shows are long. They can be, if it's not your guys on stage, they can be quite monotonous. They can be quite repetitive. So, and the spectators are paying like 35 up to £40 potentially, depends on where you are, a ticket. And then you're thinking, okay, well, they're just as important. Like they're the guys supporting the sport, supporting their athletes, coming down, giving attention to the show. And so if we can find other ways of introduce it, I love the sort of connection to sports as well. Like I have that that theme tune of something like a time down, like at baseball games,
right?
And stuff
Yes,
like that. You know what I mean? Where they do like little competitions or mini things that happen in little moments. And I mean, whether we can do that kind of thing, I'm not really sure, but certainly there's ways in which we can kind of hype the audience up, keep them motivated, also, thank them for being there and being part of the whole working machine, which a bodybuilding show, empty it's not that fun. Like having a really packed audience screaming for their athletes on stage, like just giving the athletes energy, because you guys work so hard and you want that vibe in the room. You don't want it just to be dead and silent. Like you want some energy there.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important, and you don't really realize the importance of it until you are on stage, and so even down to the music and the vibe of, and if the audience are hyped and they're like cheering, it gives you so much more as a competitor. Whereas when it's dead, you just kind of, you feel dead at the same time, so it energizes you. So I am very, very excited for this next year with the WNBF UK and what you're going to run there, and just watching the sport grow as a whole. I don't know if you have any other kind of lessons or takeaways or anything you want to share about that journey. Otherwise, I'm personally interested in your own competitive endeavors, because I think I've spoken to you about this before, and you kind of teased that you might be thinking about stepping back on stage. So I don't know if you have a timeline, or is this year going to be a bit more chill on the travel front so you can be a bit more selfish in that way?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, other things, no, I just think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of great synergy happening in natural bodybuilding. There's a lot of movement, a lot of, developments, a lot of shows. And I think the landscape is certainly growing in lots of different ways. And I see that as a really great thing. I think the more people that are interested in natural bodybuilding, the more people hear about it. There's still a lot of people in this world that we haven't even touched yet that don't even know natural bodybuilding exists. It's really cool that is growing for the better across everywhere. It's really exciting, and I know that it's a big thing internally for WNBF, for all of us to continue leading the way with stringent drug testing, with being the backbone of the sport, celebrating the the length of time that we've been running now as that leading federation. A nod to Nancy Andrews, who stepped away this year from the WNBF official, and Bob and Tina taking the reins and pushing it forward. Like, there's so much good stuff going on. For my journey, like personally, it's a really hard one. You know, every time I kind of come to this point of the year and I'm like, right, I do have the want to still compete. I really want to jump up on stage. Full transparency as well. Like, I've just turned 38. You know, I am a woman of that kind of time frame as well, where I have to think about my health. I have to think about my body's ability to potentially, if the option was ever there for family, if that was something that I ever considered in my mind. So I have this tussle, you know, sometimes where in my heart of hearts, like, I really want to jump up there and see if I can hang with these girls, because I'm not going to lie, the level is on the way up. I still think I could, you know, with structure and strategic planning, I think it could be still where I'd want to be. But in order for me to get to the level I like to be, it's very lean, and I know how long it takes me to recover from such a process. And I'm not sure where I am in my age at the second, whether I am ready to do that. So I'm in a new relationship. I'm discovering kind of what that looks like as well. So these are things that I think, as any female of my age, sometimes have to think about. And I'm not under any illusion of the levels of leanness I would have to take it to, what I'd be, you know, pushing for if I wanted to stand up there and try and make my mark again on that pro stage. Because I know my I would say, the way I am, I would just flick the switch and take it to its full extreme. Yeah. So it is a difficult decision, but it's certainly not one I'm saying no to. And I did have a moment this year, I will be completely frank, where I was like, 26 has to happen for me, because it seems like a good bridge time. So it's not a yes and it's not a no, but it's something that I am weighing up as a natural female, and my body and my capabilities and and my health, my longevity. Yeah.
I really, really appreciate, and I know the audience will, your honesty and transparency with that, because I think it's something that, as a male, well, I think about it sometimes, like that element, like I have an understanding of it, but I don't think it's as abundantly obvious that the recovery is much quicker. The downsides of getting down to such lean levels are much smaller. So I think it's so great that you're highlighting that and thinking about it. It doesn't surprise me at all that you are. But for anyone listening, it's easy to get wrapped up in bodybuilding. But at the end of the day, it's just bodybuilding. Most of us, it's a hobby. It's not something that we build our life completely around, which probably shouldn't be. And the stage is always there, right? If you need to put it off another year, 2, hey, there's not a problem. The stage will still be there for you. So exactly. I highly respect that.
Yeah, I think the thing is like you never really know. And I think with this is like a whole other conversation, right? And it's more of a female topic. But these years for any female are they're a challenging sort of, for your mindset or your body. You don't know. Like, my body's age might be phenomenal till like whenever, and there might not be any issues at all. But God forbid I put myself through another really, really intense prep, and then perhaps I went to that point where I wanted to start to try and have a family. And I think I'd probably beat myself up a little bit if I'd put myself in a negative health space for a prolonged period of time in possibly some very important years. So I've got to like weigh all these things up. And I think it's like any natural bodybuilder does this as well. It's like, you know, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are the what circumstances have you got? You know, when I started bodybuilding in 2013, I didn't care. Like, you know, I can just go for a whole year worth of prep. My preps were long, and I wouldn't imagine they would be any less now, but around 42 weeks by that point, you know, and then I'm into a very long recovery. So yeah, this is a really great topic for another time, perhaps with I'm just even thinking about it from my own. But the good thing for me is, and this is the way I look at everything I'm doing, I am so passionate about feeding back into the sport in a way that I know I can do my part to support what I'm passionate, natural bodybuilding, what I love. And I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can provide these stages, I can meet these people, I can have conversations like this, educate, learn, and draw awareness to what is such a cool thing for so many people. So I feel like, although I'm not physically competing myself at the moment, that I am, you know, a year like this for me is like a prep in itself in a completely different way. It's a different thing, but it's like my own prep, if you like. What goes into the shows, the time. I did a really cool podcast the other day, which is coming out shortly, and I spoke about like doing this, like promoting the shows. It's like a passion that keeps you up at night. That's kind of how I sort of described it. You're always thinking about it. It's like living, breathing. How can I make things better? How can I provide for the community? How can I support other things going on in the natural community? How can I pull more together? Like, I'm constantly thinking about it. So it does feel very much like a prep in its own way. I probably feel a bit like you, where I just need a bit of downtime now.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, you can kind of live vicariously through your clients, through judging, seeing other people on stage, and ultimately there's so many pros of you not stepping on stage. It's kind of easy to convince yourself not to worry about having to do that just yet. So I think that's great. Again, it's one of those where if bodybuilding, again, this is a bit of a strange thing to say because it's still bodybuilding, but if bodybuilding is all you've got in terms of like competitive bodybuilding, that is your life, then you have nothing else to fall back on. But what if something happens with your health or like a life situation where it's just not possible for you to be that competitive bodybuilder? You want other things and other passions to fall back on. So yeah, I think you're in a great spot, and I'm very excited for the future and for your future as well, wherever that may go. If people want to keep up to date with what you're up to, what the WNBF are up to, if they want to sign up for competition for next year, where should they be heading? Because I think you guys have released the dates already for the competitions next year, I think.
We have, and I'm not sure when this podcast is going out, Steve, but I will be actually announcing a slight change over this next week. But
it will be January time.
January. Okay, so this will be out by then. So WNBF_UK is the Instagram, WNBFUK.com is the website. We have the First Timers Novice Championships, which will be practically on the same date as it was this year, be the 6th of June, which is a slight change, as initially we put it out as the 13th of July. So we are just shifting that. And that's a venue complication. So they have to shift us around. So we're just pushing that. It actually works out better for us. So we're quite happy about where it's going to be. So 6th of June will be First Timers Novice. And then we shoot down the road for the big one, which is the Supernaturals, which will be a pro-am. So it'll be amateurs and pros, which will be announced. But the date is out, and that is the 13th, I think, of September, if I believe. So we are a little bit earlier in the September months, but it works out very nicely in the natural calendar in between certain natural shows we wanted to be in between. And it gives us then opportunity for whoever qualifies in those top 5 spots to be able to give them access to the European international circuit across September, October into Worlds. So it will give a little bit more dimension across the circuit because of our international rules for competing. So yeah, so we're really looking forward to it. So signing up is on the website. First timers, you're first timers only with never done this before in your life. Novice, of course, you're either this is your novice year in 25, and you can compete before us. You'd still be a novice, so you can be a novice competitor. Doesn't matter where you place before us, you're still a novice competitor in your first year. Novice also means anyone who has not taken a top 3 placing the years before 25. You are still a novice. So this is something that people get a lot of confusion with. All the information is up on the website, so you can go check it out. If you want to come and see me, it's Steff_Noble_figure pro on Instagram.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll make sure that's all linked below so that people can already start planning their timelines and booking it into their calendars, and I don't know, arrange your accommodation, travel already if you're that prepared. Do plan that stuff ahead of time. Get your tan and everything booked in already. It's always good to just offload that, know you've got it booked in. Again, thank you so much for this chat, Steff. I'm sure we'll have you back on to talk about probably more of this stuff and maybe more of your own personal journey, and obviously that female side. It's a great topic to have in future, so I'd love to bring you back on. But as always, thank you, and thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Steve.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.